Gather around, take a knee, take a knee. We're going to be talking about investment property today. All right. Should you buy investment property? Not everybody should, but some of you definitely should consider it. Okay. Now, getting into investment property could be something as simple as you own a house now, you're going to be buying another house rather than selling that one. Just go ahead and rent it out. That's actually a really good idea. Okay, because your cost of getting into the new investments has already been paid. Those funds that you put as a down payment for closing costs and everything are already sunk funds. You're not going to get them back, so they've already paid them. So there's no cost to get into that investment. All right. If you go to buy a piece of investment property that you don't already own, then you're going to end up paying closing costs. You're going to have to put down payment down, that sort of thing. Now, this video is not intended to be a tutorial on the guidelines that go into buying investment property. That actually will be the next video. This is just on the if you should buy an investment property and what are the advantages of doing so. So anyway. I'm going by an article that was in Investopedia, however you say that. Key reasons to invest in real estate. It was written by Barclay Palmer and published April 7th, 2022. It was fact-checked by Suzanne Kilvog and reviewed by Erica Rancher. So they pretty much, and I read the article, and I have to say I agree with 99% of what they had to say. So anyway, the first reason why you might want to consider buying an investment property is cash flow. Okay, if you look at a property, let's say that you're looking at a 4-family flat. Okay, and you can pick it up for X number of dollars, and based upon that purchase price with the current interest rates and the taxes and the insurance, and I'm going to recommend that you put aside a certain amount. The rule of thumb is $1 to $1.50 per square foot per property per year. So if you have a 2,000 square foot property, you're going to want to put $2,000, maybe $2,500 into a special escrow account that's earmarked for maintenance and improvement. Okay. Other that by doing such, you're taking away a lot of the risk involved. To where if you have something that goes belly up in the middle of the night, you have an HVAC system that goes belly up. It's a lot easier to deal with that circumstances if you got the money stashed in an account earmarked for that specific purpose. Biggest mistake that most people get into investment properties, they get into trouble with investment properties. That's the single biggest mistake that they have. They're cutting it too close to the bone. They're looking at what I'm renting it at, what my payment is, and they're not considering anything else. Okay. You also need to take into account, like I said, the maintenance and upkeep, stashing aside for money aside for the new roof. You also have to factor in a vacancy factor. Because especially if the smaller, the fewer number of units, you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. So if you have a single family detached, in some ways those are the most risk-free of they're less risky, I'll say, of the opportunities for investment property. But on the other hand, if you lose a tenant and you only have one tenant for that property, your income goes down to a goose egg, where your expenses and your costs don't really change a whole bunch. So anyway, from the gross rent that you can get, I would subtract out the maintenance and improvement fee. I would subtract out your principal, interest, insurance, and taxes. I would also subtract out a vacancy factor. Fannie Mae uses 25%. I think that's probably pretty steep, but if you did 25%, considering that you're not going to get that as a gross month, so you reduce your gross monthly rental by the 25% to cover the vacancy factor. Okay, now you're really going to be receiving that money as long as you're renting it, but stash it to the side, because eventually someday you're going to get the call and the tenant's going to say, "Hey, I'm moving." In which case, you're going to probably have a month or two of vacancy. Again, just like the repairs, it's a lot easier to contend with if you've planned for it. So anyway, the first thing is cash flow. When you subtract everything out and you come out to that bottom line number, are you making any money? Is there a positive cash flow? Is there a negative cash flow? Even if it's a negative cash flow, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad investment, because as time goes on, rents are expected to go up and property values are expecting to go up. If you want to know my reasoning for saying that, you can watch the other videos on why you should buy a house. The population of the United States is expected to grow to almost 450 million by the year 2050, which is 27 years from now. And then also they're not building as many, particularly starter houses, as they used to be. There's not enough money in it for the builders to concentrate on that. So those two things combined, to me, kind of leads me to think that rentals and real estate values are going to continue to rise. So even if you're not positive cash flowing at the beginning, as long as it doesn't hurt you, if you're $50 or $100 in the hole to begin, that's fine. Over the next 2 or 3 years, as you're able to raise rents, if interest rates come back down and you're able to refinance, then you might be able to improve that cash flow. If you look at it over time, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, there's a real good chance that you're going to have maybe even a substantial positive cash flow. It's something to consider, and that's one of the reasons why you should consider investment real estate. There's also a slew of tax benefits and deductions for investment property that you don't get to take advantage of otherwise. Appreciation. As we talked about, houses are probably going to go up in value. Historically, they have. It's not guaranteed. You don't come back and sue me because, Coach Bob told me property values are going to go up. Then the coal mine closed in the house and the town dried up and now I can't sell the damn thing. Don't blame me. I'm telling you, make sure you're buying in a diversified economy. There's not risk-free. Nothing in life is. But overall, this is one of the less risky investments that you could possibly make because people are always going to need to have a roof over their heads. So anyway, you got that chance for appreciation. It's probably one of the best opportunities for the average Joe to be able to build wealth. Now, most of the down payment requirements, if you go to buy a specific piece of investment property, the minimum that you're going to be able to get into it with is 15%. More than likely, you want to put 20% down. That's going to keep you out of private mortgage insurance and help you cash flow positively. Okay, but anyway, over time, those properties are more than likely going to continue to rise. As they rise, you're going to be able to build some wealth and equity in the property. If you have other investments, a 401k, an Edward D. Jones account, you're invested in the stock market or the bond market, it can also allow you portfolio diversification. Okay, things that might hurt your investment accounts, your stock and bond accounts, might actually help you on investment property. If the economy tanks, people are still going to need a roof over their heads. So they might not be working at the Chrysler plant anymore, but they might be delivering pizzas and driving an Uber on the side. But for the most part, people are going to pay their rent because that keeps a roof over their heads. And if they don't, then you boot them out and you find somebody that will. But again, if you're in a town and you're in a market where there's a major disruption, this all goes out the window. But if you buy in an area like I'm here in Cary, the Raleigh-Durham Triangle area of North Carolina, very diversified economy. If banking takes a hit in the shorts, that's not necessarily going to affect the fact that there's a dozen universities here that we're a center for higher education. Anyway, a diversified economy is what you're looking for. Now, another thing that you can look forward with investment property is the ability to leverage that investment property over time to buy additional investment properties. So let's say that you buy an investment property today, and I'm going to use a nice round number that's easy to do the math on. That's $100,000. If you want to use $200,000, we can use $200,000 and just double the numbers. But for $100,000, if you bought a piece of investment property now, and then 5 years from now, that property would appraise at $500,000. Maybe you spiffed it up, you did some repairs, you tuck pointed it, you put a new roof on it, the area became popular, whatever. But 5-10 years from now, whatever length of time, you got a chunk of equity built up in that property. You can then go and borrow against the equity that you have in that property to go buy additional investment properties. The best one that I've seen so far was early in my career. I did a loan for a guy who had started buying 4 investment properties per year. His goal, and he was putting them on 15-year fixed rates, which I don't necessarily agree with, But his goal was to be able to retire in 15 years. And he felt like if he went ahead and he bought 4 investment properties a year, put them on 15-year notes, that they'd all be paid down to zero when it was time for him to retire. He could then start selling one of those houses per year to live on. I thought it was genius. Now, he modified his plan, and instead of selling them, he just continued to accrue them. And I think when I met him, when I knew him, I think he had like probably 40 or 50 properties. His daughter's full-time job was managing them for him. So he was actually really successful. And if I had to do over again, I'd steal his idea and go back and do that. And matter of fact, I'm still not totally opposed to stealing his idea. I'm just, it's better to do it younger than older. But anyway, you can, once you built the equity, leverage that property to go ahead and buy other additional properties. Another thing is it's a inflation hedge. Okay, as inflation, like right now we've been experiencing a bout of inflation. If the price of roofing nails and roofing shingles goes up 3% next year, the price of new homes is going to go up 3% next year. If the price of new homes goes up 3%, the price of existing homes is going to tag right along behind it, and it's going to go up 3%. So if we get into a highly inflationary environment like we were before this year recently, where inflation was running 9-10%, same thing holds true. Real estate values went up during it, and they probably will continue to go up as long as we're in an inflationary environment. The only thing that could really zing you is if we get into a deflationary environment, but the Fed does a pretty good job of keeping us out of that. So anyway, that's if you're talking about buying individual investment properties. There's also a thing called a REIT, a real estate investment trust, which is something that you can go to your Edward D. Jones guy about and ask them about REITs. It's where you can basically buy into real estate as an investment, but do it more as an instrument, like it's a REIT. It's an investment in the pool of real estate where you get a particular return or a percentage of the return that the property does. Okay, I guess that's pretty much it. The bottom line is that when you look at it over time, the rate of return on your original investment, particularly if you're turning your current home into an investment property, can be phenomenal. It can be a 300% annual rate of return. So it's definitely something that you should consider. If you have questions about it, feel free to reach out to me in the comments or give me a call or reach out to me through the website. I'm Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell. Now, let's put you into an investment piece of property.